Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all well. Daily Express is the channel. Um, mixed feelings here, to be honest. So the video is Liz Truss. Obviously, was prime minister for a brief period. These people really run the UK on about the deep state. Daily Expresso. So there'll be a bit of truth in this, but again, it's on the Daily Express, to be honest. So it won't be the ultimate truth, I would suggest. Also, we've got a bit of Nigel Farage, who is reform. Britain needs reform. My economic vision for Britain. So I had a listen to this. I maybe got to about 5 minutes, and he talks a very good game. To be honest, that's the crack. Like in economically, again, he tells you the truth. To be honest, for 5 minutes that I seen, but look at lad who's just took over New York. Do you know what I mean? He's um, turncoated on half the things he said, but not just that. He's promised absolutely ridiculous things. Like again, I'll maybe make a video of the Angry Truths channel video because it's really good. To be honest, he says he can't wait to watch the chaos and the city dissolve. Basically, I'll maybe make a video on it next. It's quite funny. So and what's going to happen to New York over the next couple of years by the sounds of it. So Nigel Reform. Oh, fuck me, I've done it again. Nigel Farage of Reform and his economic vision. So there's that crack, and then we've got Truss here saying like people who really run the UK. Well, we'll start off with Liz Truss.
Well, let's talk about the state, or more specifically, the deep states. You say the Bank of England sabotaged you. The Treasury, the Civil Service. Tell our viewers and listeners about this deep state and the people who really are controlling our governments.
I think it's important for people to understand because people think the Prime Minister is all powerful or the Chancellor is all powerful and they can go into government and they can just pull the levers and things will happen.
No, it's all, I mean, only the sheeple think this. Like the people who know what's going on know that you're all just a mouthpiece for the fucking global elites, basically. Again, she mentions the Bank of England there. If you look into who actually owns the Bank of England, there's all the people that we're talking about in the background here who are creating the New World Order. They also own the Federal Reserve and all the other centralised banks of all the other fucking countries in the world. And ultimately are all the richest people in the world because they own all of the economies and print money at debt, and we owe the debt to them. So yeah, they're all rich as fuck, and they were all rich as fuck from long ago as well. So you never really hear the names mentioned. Again, it's like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Astors, the Baron Sachs, the royal family, who is German in heritage, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. They're not really called Windsors, but for the sake of this. But if you notice, the people now that Andrew's dropped his title, if you listen, people are calling him Andrew Rothschild Windsor. So the Rothschild name's in there, into the royal family. Again, all these families ultimately control the Bank of England. Yeah, and they're ones behind this global new world order I speak of very frequently. Do you know what I mean? So here's Liz Truss kind of telling you, but I mean the fact that it's on the Daily Express, makes me very weary. I haven't heard this. I thought we'd play through it and see what she says and see if she's telling the truth, to be honest, or if she's telling half truths. Do you know what I mean? Again, we know about the Fabian Society through the judge, through the Epping case. So all these groups, round table groups they're called, like the Fabian Society, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberg Group, the Freemasons, upper echelons, the Scotch Rite ones, and various other sects of the Freemasons, and the Knights of Malta, and all. There's more than that as well. There's absolutely loads of them. All these groups kind of run the show, so we'll see if they get a mention as well by her. Or she's just going to fill us full of a kind of bullshit and blame the wrong people. But we'll have a listen.
But actually, the government is controlled by the permanent bureaucracy, by the civil service. It's them who hire and fire the people that work in the government. They control the budgets of each government department.
Okay.
They make the decisions about how policies are implemented. So even if a policy has been signed off by a minister, it's a civil servant who says whether it's legal, it's a civil servant who implements it, it's a civil servant who signs off the budget for it. And that gives those people a lot of power. Now, the Bank of England governor has what I would describe as unaccountable power. He's appointed for 8 years. He can pretty much only be sacked for gross negligence. So he is able to make decisions about the economy independent of the elected government that have massive implications for people's lives. So what has happened, and it's got particularly bad in the last 30 years since Tony Blair got into office, is lots of power that used to sit in the hands of elected people now sits in the hands of the unelected. And they are making decisions about monetary policy. So what interest rates are, what how much money the Bank of England prints. That's
Yeah, I mean, she's right. Like this is another level as well. Like again, there's multiple levels to this. But again, the people she mentions the governor of the Bank of England, not the people who own the Bank of England, so to speak, or are the big shareholders or whatever you want to say about who ultimately controls that entity. See, we owe the national debt to somebody. You can't owe the national debt to nothing. You know what I mean? You've got to owe it to somebody. So we owe it to somebody in something, which is the Bank of England. So who owns the Bank of England? Again, she talks of the governor, but the governor doesn't own the Bank of England. He lasts for 8 years, as she mentioned there. So again, she's kind of telling you a lot of the truth here, but she's not going. It's like with Jimmy Savile as an example. Like the book just stopped at Jimmy Savile and celebrities like fucking Rolf Harris and all that shit in the BBC. And it didn't go into the politicians. Well, she's kind of doing the same thing here. She's telling you a bit of truth about the back workings of fucking Whitehall and all this shit. But she's not going higher up the chain. Basically, because if she goes higher up the chain, then people will probably murder her for telling everybody the truth and how the game really works. But yeah, so there's unless she goes further on down the line here, but I don't think she's gonna, just from what she's saying already. She's telling you sort of the next level up after the Prime Minister that's in the background there. The hidden hands, but it's not the really important hidden hands, basically.
The decision the Bank of England essentially makes. They're making decisions about fiscal policy. So if you look at the budget coming up, you'll hear a lot about the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR.
Yeah.
They're the people that essentially set the tram lines which the Chancellor has to operate in. And the same is true, by the way, for things like migration. You know, there's an independent government legal department that decides what's legal and what's illegal. They are the people who are saying, sorry, but you've got to put these migrants up at 4-star hotels. You know, that's so what I'm saying is that this bureaucratic apparatus is there. It is essentially driving the decision making of government, and ministers pretty much have to go along with it.
But with the Bank of England, though, for example, surely it's better. I would trust an expert in banking and finance than a politician.
Well, that makes you part of the globalist elite.
Oh,
basically,
wow.
JJ, you're part of the problem.
I'm part of the problem.
Because if you're basically saying you want the country run
by
unelected technocrats,
by
you're not a Democrat. You're not a Democrat. You believe in unelected technocracy. It's a position, it's a point of view, but it's not democracy.
I just think...
no one voted for Andrew Bailey. I mean, by the way, he's not even a competent technocrat. He's an incompetent technocrat. But even if there were competent technocrats, the fact is, no one elected them. And if you just allow me to expand on this point.
Go on.
You know, these are people, broadly speaking, the senior people in the Treasury, the senior people of the Bank of England. They believe in net zero.
Okay.
They believe in mass migration. They believe in Keynesian economics. They believe in high tax and high spend. Mm-hmm. You know, they were responsible for printing vast amounts of money after the financial crisis during COVID that has inflated asset prices and made it very difficult for young people to get on in life. So they have a worldview. They're not neutral technocrats.
Yeah.
They have a worldview. And we can see this worldview emerge from time to time. So Bailey has recently criticised Brexit. He has promoted net zero. Mark Carney, who is the ultimate version of these people, made lots of money out of the whole climate change agenda, or what Donald Trump would call the climate change scam. He then went on to be Prime Minister of Canada and is busy ruining Canada's economy at the moment. So, these people are not neutral experts. They are people with an agenda who have huge amounts of unelected power. And what is going on in Britain is the public is incredibly frustrated by this, because they keep voting for governments that limit immigration, for governments that...
Yeah, I mean, she's telling you there, really. She is telling you the crack, to be honest. She's not dropping the big names in there, but she's kind of telling you the crack. It's an agenda. People are working to an agenda. This, you mentioned Carney, I think now he's in Canada, ruining their economy. Again, ruining, just like ours is being ruined. So you've kind of been told as well. That's the beauty of like people who deny the New World Order. Whether you want to call it the New World Order, that's just an easy phrase to call it. They roll it up into one ball. And it's kind of the crack as well. It will be a new world, and a new world order, of a new way of things work, while they collapse all these systems around us. So, again, but nobody voted for this, do you know what I mean? No one's voted for this future, no one's voted for the digital ID, no one's voted for the Online Safety Act, no one's voted to be poor and the economy to crash and all the businesses to fail. Nobody's voted for this, because nobody would vote for it, so that's why it's being done to us through the back door. And again, she's kind of telling you all this as well. She's not going to the upper echelons and the levels. She maybe isn't mentioning these sort of round table groups where it all kind of goes on as well. But she's maybe saying as much as she can. That's the other side of it, because you're playing with fire in many ways. You're absolutely playing with fire.
Want
lower taxes.
Want lower taxes.
Yeah.
And governments aren't delivering it. And you've got to ask, why is it that the public keep voting for lower taxes and lower immigration, and politicians keep delivering the opposite? It's not because politicians are stupid. It's because they're part of this system which has a particular worldview. And you're essentially saying you prefer the worldview of these unelected technocrats to the worldview of the British people. I mean, that's what you're saying,
Liz,
JJ.
You sound like you've been listening to the Joe Rogan Experience far too much. That's what you sound like. This is what I'd like to see happen here, okay? I would say, okay, Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister. You then get to put in place the who's in charge of Bank of England, who's in charge of the Treasury, who's going to be heading up the civil service departments. That's what I think that should be happening.
Correct.
But I don't think it should be politicians put into those positions. I think it should be just the people who are best at those jobs.
Yeah, but who's deciding who's best?
Well, the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister should decide.
Then that is a political appointment, fine.
Yeah, but as long as it's not an actual politician.
But what's an actual politician
An
compared
MP.
to?
I don't want an MP running it. Like, we've got Rachel from Accounts now in charge of things.
She's not in charge. This is what I'm trying to say to you, JJ, that I'm no fan of hers whatsoever, but she is not dictating monetary and fiscal policy in this country. It's being run by the Bank of England governor. It's being run by the Office of Budget Responsibility. It's being run by the Treasury officials. And until people really understand what is going on and how the country operates, we're not going to fix it. That's what I'm saying to you. And even if somebody is bad, like Starmer or Reeves, they are elected. None of these other people have been elected and they can't be removed. That is the fundamental problem. And by the way, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are fans of.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're going down the shitter, but these are all, again, kind of the people who are in, like, the Fabian Society as well, and, yeah, they can't be removed, and this is all sort of going on in the background, but again, here's Liz Truss telling you all this, but it's not told to you by the generally, do you know what I mean? But this is kind of what is going on. It's all happening in the background, and everybody's going to an agenda that you should kind of see coming at this point, again, with like the Online Safety Act and the digital ID, and the fact that people don't want it, nobody wants it, but they're going to do it anyway. linking it into fucking carbon tax and digital currencies and all this kind of. You can kind of see all this very much coming if you're paying attention. So it's not really a myth. You know what I mean? It's not, again, I made the video there about 2030, and obviously the completion date for this whole kind of cracks 2030, with many people and things pointing to that year, i.e. the Economic Forum and the United Nations. And I'm not talking like conspiratorial things here, we're talking like world entities, well-known world entities like the United Nations and the Economic Forum, who are blasting this date at you, 2030. So this is the beauty of it, yeah, like people who can call it a conspiracy theory. But here you have world entities that in effect kind of run the world, the United Nations and the Economic Forum, and Davos has been mentioned and all these things, and the Bilderberg group where they all meet and don't tell anybody. So yeah, this is what's going on. It's going on in the background, working to an agenda. So she's told you some truth in here, you know what I mean? But again, I kind of think you can only say so much as well, or you will get murdered by the people who are doing all this.
The unelected technocracy. You know, these are, you know, she worked at the Bank of England. We don't know exactly what job she did, but she worked at the Bank of England. Keir Starmer was head of the CPS. So these are people who are ingrained in that system and that way of thinking. But nevertheless, you know, they are elected politicians. And we have a system in Britain where the unelected are far too powerful. So, and they get...
Yeah, and it's going down the shitter. So we kind of need to do something about it, really. I mean, even it kind of trumps the whole video here with Nigel Farage, because even if he is telling the truth and he does win, then he's not going to be able to do fuck all anyhow because of everything Liz Truss just said, because all these people in the background who dictate all the policies and the budgets, etc., etc. So, again, I've mentioned this before, it's a fucking shit show, but there is no democracy. It's the illusion of democracy. And we're all working towards this 2030 date for the absolute shit show of the world will be for us who remember the world when it was good. So anyway, I'll play a bit of Nigel, because he just talks about the economy and he kind of tells you how fucking bad it is, to be honest. That's the beauty of it. He tells you how bad it is. So we'll have a little play of this.
Zia, thank you, and good morning, everybody. Another depressing budget hoves into view, another tax-raising budget, another budget that doesn't have the courage, the guts to cut public spending, and I think the level of pessimism amongst businesses, amongst savers, amongst those that have assets of any kind has not been lower in modern times. I think for some years we've actually been living under an illusion. We've not been prepared to face up to just how much of an economic mess we're genuinely in. As we slip down the global league tables, we kid ourselves. Well, it's okay. We've got GDP growth. But there wouldn't have been any GDP growth over the course of the last few years if it wasn't for mass migration on a scale hitherto never even contemplated, and of course, excess government borrowing. That is all that has kept GDP figures up. And indeed, I think we can argue very strongly that on an individual basis, mass migration has made the average Briton poorer. You take a year like 2024, a record level of people coming into the country, and GDP per capita falling. And of course, the productivity problem, well, there's nothing new there. We've been suffering from poor productivity going back for the best part of 20 years. We convinced ourselves that by importing masses of cheap, unskilled foreign labour, that somehow that would be good for our economy. Well, it was good for the wage bills of big companies in the short term, but catastrophic when it came to training and education for our own workforce. And when it comes to the public sector, who still seem to be hooked on the idea that working from home somehow is good for productivity, well, we see the disastrous results, and this is something that Danny Kruger, on our behalf, has started work on already. But the one subject we really don't discuss at least the Conservative and Labour parties don't discuss is the level of national debt.
Boom. So, absolutely correct. I mention this all the time. So this is where I said he talks a good game here. He talks a very good game. He's mentioned the national debt. Like, again, this is key to the problem. I've mentioned this for a while. So, again, whether this guy will lie to us and fuck us over, the ultimate truth is I don't know. I don't know. I'm not some sort of fucking oracle here. Because he's been in politics a long time, and generally everybody in politics is there to fucking lie to us and fuck us over. I've little faith in anybody at this point. But maybe he is the man he claims to be, but I'm very sceptical. But he mentions the national debt, again, absolutely key to our problems here.
In fact, even last week, the leader of the Conservative Party was saying, in office, we cut the deficit for 14 years. Well, cutting the deficit is a very different thing to cutting debt when you're still running borrowing certainly at peacetime levels, unlike anything ever seen before.
Yeah, again, we mentioned the national debt clock. Hold on. So here we have the national debt clock. It's just loading, to be honest, and we get the grand total here upon loading. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. It's taking some loading. Here we go. 3.2 trillion. Well, 3.242 trillion. So I think it's went up, 2 billion since 2 billion since we last mentioned it. We still all owe £52,000 and 76. So I think that's maybe went up slightly. It was maybe 54 or something. So we all owe another £22 since we last spoke. £22 has been added to the bill. We had billions, but only £22 each. So there we go. There's the national debt. So he's mentioned it. Sorry, that's Liz. Back to Nigel. Yeah, but again, this is the problem.
They may try to wash their hands and run away from it, but our national debt increased by over 2.5 times during those 14 years. And now it's accelerating. Now it's accelerating in the most extraordinary way. The OBR predictions for the year going back just before the general election was that we'd borrow 77 billion in the year. That estimate is now 130 billion and rising with each and every month. Our debt has risen faster than any other comparable Western country. In fact, in the last 20 years, our debt-GDP ratio is up by nearly 60%. We are doing worse on debt than any of our competitors, and that includes Eurozone countries who are in other deep, deep trouble. Our debt repayments are over 100 billion a year. They're over the level of our defense budget, and the markets are getting nervy. We've seen this with 10 and 30-year gilt yields. In fact, I think my own view is that in 2 budgets' time, the markets will actually force the Chancellor into what will be a genuine austerity budget, at which point the left in the Labour Party won't buy it, and it's why I still stand by my prediction that there will be a general election caused by economic collapse that will happen in 2027.
A very, very strong possibility if we continue on the current trend of Rachel Reeves taxing the rich, not cutting the benefit state in any way, bringing in constant foreigners, giving them hand over fist, hotels, you name it. But again, according to Liz Truss, this is going on in the background. But again, it's ultimately will end in economic collapse. So is that the plan? You know what I mean? Is that ultimately the plan? Because we want this one world currency, as I've mentioned, the new world order, one world currency, one world government. And a one world religion, and that religion looking like it will be Islam if we're going to see what's happening around the world, really, again in New York and England, etc. They're forcing the religion down the throat of everybody, so it's kind of like that looks the way of things here. So, yeah, Liz Truss, Nigel Farage, again, 2027 economic collapse, a very strong possibility, again, if we keep continuing to go the way we're going, print money like there is no tomorrow. So, I just thought it was very interesting. He's kind of telling you the truth, to be honest. That's the beauty of it. He's a politician, but he is actually telling you the truth.
And just look at the pace, the rapid pace that we continue to deindustrialize. It's all going. Chemicals, refining, cement, heavy engineering, steel. We're losing literally all of it. Cars. And China, the beneficiary in almost every single sector. Why? Because for ideological reasons, we have chosen to have the most expensive industrial energy prices in the world. As for benefits, well, the bill this year has ballooned to over 300 billion. That is more than the cost of the National Health Service and defence added up together.
300 billion a year on the benefit state. Again, this can't go on. I've spoke to people before about this, again, on benefits, and just said watch yourselves, and again, kind of look what's going on in America as well. They just cut loads of people off, stopped the food stamps, but even just cut loads of people off the food stamps. The benefit state is unsustainable, and again, was that the plan? But whether they'll just cut it back or it'll just end, I don't know. Again, there's no money. So it's a massive catastrophic chain of events here. It really is, the economic collapse, but a very real prospect. Again, no one's really. I don't think anyone's in our lifetimes has really seen what could happen here. It's again the economic collapses of the past. We always just kind of increase the national debts, but we're at the end of we're at the end of the national debt. We can't print any more money. It's not feasible anymore. We can't pay this. Do you know what I mean? So it's not looking good. But I thought it was a very good speech. In fairness to Nigel Farage, again, I often say I don't trust him, but that's my personal opinion. And again, I'm not an oracle. I don't know if I'm right, if he's going to fuck us over, or if he's genuinely telling us the truth. But he is telling us the truth here. All this is the fucking mess that we are genuinely in here. A mess the likes of which you've never seen. Again, if people knew economics, you'd be real fucking worried, to be honest. You'd be real worried about what's going to happen here. But the fact that you would have held your government accountable for all the money they've been spending had you known the truth, and had you known how it really worked, and that you were, in effect, it's on your head, as we know here. It's 52,076 for every man, woman, and child. Or if you haven't got a job, us people with jobs are paying 89,000 here. But overall, it's 52,000 man, woman, and child. So we're in a real fucking mess here, to be honest. And again, this could all collapse around us. Economic collapse, it's in the words. Again, force a general election. Nigel may get in then, but at that point, the horse is bolted. Do you know what I mean? The horse is bolted out of the fucking stables here. The economy has collapsed. So again, it's always doom, really. It's general doom, doom news, doom in the background, doom in the foreground, doom everywhere you look. Welcome to Doomsville. I'll leave it there, peace.